is realism subjective or objective? That's a good question. I always have to think about it when you ask, FOMO, because usually you know the answer to the question you're asking. You know, audio. Okay, so he says audio realism. Audio realism.
I don't know what he means by that. I mean, like, are you talking about it represents what we would hear in a natural environment? I'm assuming.
Well, I think I think it's I think it is objective, or there's an objective way.
Oh, here we go. He says, reviewers say it sounds so real, like I'm there, like you're at the concert.
Right. Sure.
Unfortunately, they don't know. They weren't actually there, so they don't know what to reference. They didn't hear what it's supposed to sound like. So, what are they referencing? I mean, let's just say this: if Chana were right here, and he was talking to me, right? He's talking into the mic, right? And then I record it and I play it back.
Knock, 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 Joe.
If I can't tell the difference between him talking and the playback here, then the entire chain is pretty realistic, right? That's realism. It didn't get messed up through the microphone, didn't get messed up when it went through the preamp and the interface, and the headphones or playback system also didn't mess up the sound, and so it sounds real. That would be
Toyota Supra GR Time Attack.
But subjective is such a tricky term too, because like it is how you perceive it, right? So you would have to perceive it. I think basically at the end of the day, everything is subjective if it's going through a human. Right? We have to perceive it. So it's a tricky question. It's a kind of a trick question. But at the end of the day, if the output sounds like the input, and if it measures exactly the same, to me that is realism. Right?
Hey, yeah, I mean, it really is just about perception, right?
I don't know. That's your opinion.
Well, I mean, there's a whole lot. I mean, if you close your eyes and you go to sleep, man, like you might not know you're dreaming and you're living a whole nother world, right? But what is real is only, it's up to the person who's trying to figure it out. Is this real? Is this not real? Did you take the blue pill or the red pill? Mike took the green pill. What does that mean? I don't know. We all see different. So I've been in my fair share of concerts and musical, and honestly, it never sounds like stereo as the sound comes from the stage with zero imaging.
With no imaging, because you're not even in the center half the time.
Exactly. No, that's true, because we have binaural hearing. That's why I'm always about binaural recordings, binaural playback. The fascinating thing about binaural is that it does sound real. Like sometimes when I went to vacation, I was like recording the kids and I had, my binaural mics, right? And I was just listening to it later on, and, the kids are always saying something, yelling or doing something over here, right? And when I'm playing it back, I'm like, huh? And they're just like on their iPad, not doing anything. I'm like, oh, shoot. So that's realism, right? I got fooled into thinking that it was actually happening. That doesn't really happen with stereo, I don't listen to like some headphones like, oh my goodness, what's happening in the room? Yeah, I don't know. What else we got here? Realish.
Realistish. Matt also says, in fact, I like the 1974 quad mix of Dark Side of the Moon better than the Atmos mix.
What's Joe in reference? Joe and reference. Let's see here. Nope. Oh, China has to take off. So these guys are in here asking, I guess, FOMO and who's this? Is this Fred? That's Fred. Talking about, what's more realistic, 2-channel like stereo, or something that maybe I don't know if they're talking about up mixing.
Yeah.
This FOMO says I would think multi-channel sounds more real. And let's see, what's the response here?
But that's Fred.
And he says, and Fred says, but we don't normally hear drums coming from the ceiling.
No, dude,
Don't
I totally
you?
do with my AV10. You guys aren't on AV10 life. You don't have that. If you have the AV10, drums come out everywhere, dude. Ceiling, windows, everywhere.
So here's the thing, Fred. If you were able to not hear the source of the drums, let's just do this. If you put a microphone on the ceiling, right? You don't think any drum sounds are coming from up there? Right? If somebody's playing the drum in a room, if somebody's playing the drums,
So,
it just comes
normally-
only ear level, like nothing goes up and hits the
there
ceiling.
are normally overhead mics when they're recording the drum kit. So, in essence, if you wanted to be the drummer, you wanted to sit in the drummer's spot, they probably could make that happen because there are overhead microphones in a drum set. So they can put that up there.
These guys are talking about, I think they did that in the concert, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Tommy Lee did that thing where he's like flipped upside down, was drumming upside down. Yeah.
That's cool. So yeah, but I mean that's the argument, right? Oh, I don't hear drums from the ceiling. I don't hear voices coming from the ceiling. Well, you hear reflections.
I think it's more of a creative license though when they're doing that, because there are some mixes, Atmos mixes, they're intentionally doing some things just to have some fun with it. You know, to utilize those height channels. So I don't think it's necessarily trying to represent, because if so, you're basically going to have main sound stage up front and then some reflections on the back and on your ceiling, like you said. So, but I think they're just having some fun with it.
Yeah. So I mean, I like this topic because if let's say you record it, you play it back on a stereo system, you will have some reflections from your speakers hitting your ceiling, right? So whatever playback from the drums is going to hit your ceiling and you're going to hear that, right? So now it doesn't sound like you're in that original space, right? So if your ceiling is 9 feet and the original recording was in a space that was 30 feet, well, it's not going to sound the same. Yeah. Let's say they recorded near field, assuming they recorded near field, right? So yeah, I don't know. I think that the whole idea of drums not coming from the ceiling is not true, because you do hear the sound from the ceiling, but it's a reflected sound. That's all. And that's what I think the up mixers actually do. They have an idea how reflections sound and they play back reflections when they're not there. So what else we got? Tim Todd, serial with effective crosstalk cancellation given a person's HRTF, head-related transfer function, make for a more realistic experience. So crosstalk cancellation given a person's HRTF, he's talking about let's see,
like what
you're talking about
does?
Through speakers. I assume he's talking about through speaker playback.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're listening to speakers, right? Let's say whatever's coming from the right speaker is hitting your right ear, but it's also crossing over crosstalk, hitting your left ear. And that's an unwanted sound. Sometimes, I don't know, that's arguable also. Because the mixer probably mixed on speakers and maybe he accounted for that. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But there are systems that cancel out the sound going to the opposite ear. Like the Polk SDA is supposed to do that, with their speakers. And I've seen some crazy headphone type of systems. I forgot what they were that actually do that. But yeah. Basically, if you do that, if you do crosstalk cancellation, then you can. What it actually lets you do is you're able to hear binaural. If you play a binaural recording, you can play it through speakers. That's it. It actually might not make normal stereo sound better, right? Because it might sound like you're wearing headphones. You're like, oh, I don't like that. I want to hear it out there. I don't want to hear it over here. Something like that. I mean, I'm talking out of my butt right now. I don't know.
Like those Polk SDAs were actually pretty fascinating to experience. Dude, it felt like I was in a room and the room had headphones on, and I was like the little guy in the brain.
That's
right? It was so weird, but very cool. And I played. There's one of my tracks on my demo list on Tidal or whatever had a lot of like crazy panning, just left and right panning, and it was so like crystal clear. I felt like I was in a room wearing headphones.
Mhm.
I mean, it was pretty crazy.
I think they'd make a killing if they just took the top of the, what is it, Polk Legend L800. Just took the top. Forget those 210s or whatever it was.
Right.
Just the top with the SDA tech, and just sell that. You know what I mean? I don't, make it lower, make it in the reserve series. I'd buy that.
If you're interested in joining us in the after show, you can visit patreon.com/daily HiFi. We'd love to hang out with you and get to know you better. We're going to have a lot of fun.